good morning, and welcome to Doppler'S Gear Garage. I'm Doug, in case we haven't met. Nice to meet you. This is the garage, and we talk about guitar talk, as I affectionately like to say. I answer questions. So if you got questions about guitar, technique, scales, chords, we don't talk about caged. No, we do talk about caged, but with a slightly different juxtaposition than perhaps some of the other folks out there. In any case, it is my pleasure to have you with me on this lovely Saturday morning. Thank you for taking time out of your weekend to be here. Let me get my comments up and running. There we go. Headstock Harem, good morning. Howdy. Albert, good morning to you, my friend. I take it you got my follow-up email about the shirt. So part of the reason the set kind of looks like it does is I'm in the middle of what I affectionately call, deer and, kind of elk, when they get out into kind of mating season, they do this thing called rucking. I am rigging, which is basically where I start pulling apart all these different components and putting things together. So what you're hearing here is actually, and it won't sound as good, and the danger of muting the microphone, which I'm muting right now, hence the lip moving, is that sometimes I forget to take it off, the mute function. But in any case, what you're hearing right now is basically these two amps working together in stereo. And so this is just very briefly, the goal of using a 2-amp rig is that it allows you to get a stereo image, which is Paul Richard. Good morning. Oh, Shane Wise, the Gear Whisperer. Look at you, my friend. And what's going on, Paul Richard? The advantage of using 2 amps is multifold. First of all, if you're working with a singer, it allows you to kind of separate the left and the right around where they live in the center. Or if you're an instrumentalist, or when you want to be the instrumentalist, your stereo, but yet at the same time, even though the left and the right amp have a slightly different sound, you're still here, and you're here, and then your effects are on the hard left and hard right. So it really gives you this lovely spread. In this particular case, I'm going into this amplifier, just so you have an idea of what I'm doing, in case you want to rig out. And I'm coming out of here. I'm going into down here at the bottom here. You can barely see it. That's an Axe Fractal Audio VP4, and that's responsible for the. Turn down here a little bit because I know the bleed into this microphone is not a great sound. But that's all of that kind of stereo goodness, and then that comes back into the return of both amplifiers there. And the neat thing about that is then you've got the delay and reverb doing that lovely stereo thing. So the guitar kind of has the impression of both being in the center and on the far left and far right. Really kind of a cool thing to do. So basically I'm in mad pre-production on a video for this amplifier. And one of the other things I'm doing in the midst of all of this, and we talked about this a little bit last time, is creating a rig. Oh, first of all, hello, David. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Kevin, what's happening? First live stream I caught in a while. Beautiful day in Austin. Welcome back, my friend. Hello, hello, hello. Stereo is so nice. I usually run in ears. Got a gig tonight. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All of that. What's going on, Brad? How you doing? Hello, hello, hello. Agreed. And Sean Varley, what's going on? The man with the pink strat? Okay, so the deal is, one of the things that I'm in the process of working out. Which one of these amps is that going to work on? There you go. So if you take a look right here, I am switching channels. That is to say, there's my. Turn the Sustainiac off. I'm on the clean channel of this amp right here. Let me mute my mic. And then with the push of a button, I'm on the other channel, which is kind of my... And what I'm in the process of working out with my new buddy Mario Marino from Axis Electronics out of Canada, who also does some work with my dear friends at RJM, is getting so this unit and this master unit over there can talk to each other. So that's going to give me those. There's a secondary function, which I don't think I've got up and running right now because I pulled a cable for my guitar. But basically, I'm going to be able to go between. This is so cool. I'm besides myself because we talked a little bit about this last week. But the idea is, say you've got two different amps. These particular amps have two channels, one of which has one of which has a clean and a dirty mode. So that is, say I've got an orange channel, which I can toggle between clean mode and dirty mode. And I've got a red channel, which just lives in dirty mode. But for each of those dirty modes, you can configure it for vintage gain or modern gain. So the ability to target both amps with an AB box, which is what my buddy Mario designed. Where is my switch track? There it is. There's a Mesa Boogie switch track, which is basically going to choose the input between the two amps. And between this PBC6X and the second PBC6X, I'm going to be able to choose which amp I go into. And with a little bit of switch magic, I can then switch channels on both amps. So I have the opportunity to have 4 different channels selectable at the same time, which basically means I can have a clean channel at all times. I can have a vintage gain channel at all times. I can have a modern gain channel at all times. And I can clone whichever of those I want to have. And it's all in stereo because both these amps are coming out. I can grab it because it's not yet hooked up. They will be coming out. Around the back of the rig we go. Where we stop, you never know. We got this little handy little box here. And basically, this is a box that my buddy Mason at Vertex told me about from the good folks at Layla. And the magic of this box is as follows. Normally, it's designed to be a passive split box, hence why it's called the P-split. Wait for it. But you can flip it in reverse and sum 2 signals into it. And because it's got ground lift and phase inversion, it means that by chance you're kind of summing 2 different sources that are not necessarily in phase with one another. Not, I guess, that an input if you were summing them to your choice of them. Well, actually, if you were summing 2 preamps together into one sound, which I hadn't thought of doing with that, the phase would matter. But in this particular case, what I'm doing is I'm using this after I've chosen which one of these I'm going into. So both preamp outs are going to this box, or will be. The output of this in mono, either one amp or the other, because I'm using this box to choose which one of these amps I'm using, that goes out into whatever effects I'm going to run in the loop. And then those are running in stereo, so those go back to both amps. So the loop doesn't know, other than the input coming from a mono source, which of the 2 amps are there. But because of the switch magic on the front end of this rig, I'll be able to do all the things that I could want to do and maybe have an extra channel in the process of doing that. Why would you want to do that? One of the cool things about these particular amps is kind of once you end up, and I realized the difference between and you're hearing me through this mic there, summing my voice and the amp. So, but again, when I use that foot switch, I have a tendency to forget and leave my voice off. So for the sake of better presentation skills, we're going to do that. So I have the gain at about noon there. I'm going to bring it, oh, wait. Yeah, at about noon. I'm going to bring it down to about 9 o'clock. Let me mute this. So what's neat about all of that stuff is kind of once you find the sweet spot on these amps, You can generally just turn the gain up and down, but the neat thing about having 4 channels to work with, you can have basically the same channel but set up with a different amount of gain, so you can just toggle back and forth between them, and you have your choice of 4 really groovy tones. You do need a second amp to do that with, and in this particular case, part of the reason I'm doing it is it's the first video in the series on the rectifiers, and I happen to have, this is the newest version in the quote-unquote standard dress. This is the black chrome thing. In any case, all right, let me jump back into the commentary. Holy cow! All right, first of all, let me take a quick moment and get caught up here. Okay, what's going on, Tim? What's happening? What's happening? I purchased a Badlander. What can I expect? Good and bad. So, okay, let me hold on. I brought a pencil today, and I brought a couple of pieces of paper, so I don't have to write on my desk. So I'm going to take some notes, but let me find a virgin piece of paper here, and I'm going to go in order. And so Badlander, oh boy, have I, one of my favorite subjects, Tim, bad. Okay, I will get to you in just a moment. Let me just jump in and say hello to everybody. One of my favorite subjects. All right. Gib, hello, my dear friend. Great to see you. Hello. Look at that photo. Stringed harmonies. Hello, hello. Okay. Thank you, my friend. I am very, very, very fortunate. And like all of you guys, I'm a gear lunatic. So thanks for hanging out. What's going on, Junie? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yes, exactly like Albert said. And I could wax lyric or poetical and lyrically on that. Eric, good morning, good morning. I still have your care package. It's now by my front door. It will make its way to you. Good morning, Moinster. Moistner. Sorry, I keep getting that wrong. Song Moistner. Way to go. Love that photo too. Good morning to you. Okay. I'm still using the Mighty Helix Native. So, I use a little, okay, so hang on. So let's, I'm going to, Junie, Helix. I'm going to have a conversation about all of that in just a moment. So that will be the second on the list. Yes, with a little bit of subtext. Okay, Francesco, good morning, my dear friend. Come stai? Great to see you. Hello, hello, hello. I would love to know if you have any questions that somehow out of your wealth of genius and guitar expertise, if there's anything you're like, I'm curious, or at least you're like, what is your take on this? Like, I don't know, Caged or, you know, some other crazy thing. By the way, the other thing that's happening here is I am in the midst of working on this insane pentatonic course. So if anybody would like to be kind of part of the kicking the tires on some of the bits and pieces, do me a favor. Email me at dougdopplermusic@gmail.com and with the subject line, pentatonic. And I'll send you some stuff. But we're going to go over one of my favorite little things that I kind of, in the midst of all this, I'll give you a little tiny preview. If we're in G minor pentatonic, let's say we play a G minor bar chord. All right, I played a little natural minor, a little harmonic minor there, but the point is I just hung out that G minor pentatonic. One of the things I'm working on is root clusters. What in the world is a root cluster? Well, if I take a look at that G there, I can play it as part of 4, 5, flat 7, 1. And I can play it as part of 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3. And I can play it as part of flat 7, 1, flat 3, 4. And I can play it as part of 1, flat 3, 4, 5. So that root cluster, it can be one of 4 different notes sequentially within the minor pentatonic. It can be the 4th note starting from the 4, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. It can be the third note starting from the 5. 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3. It can be the second note starting from the flat 7, flat 7, 1, flat 3, 4. And it can be the first note starting from the, wait for it, the 1, flat 3, 4, 5. But that root cluster, anytime you have a trio of strings, that you can put that root as that note right there. That is to say, if we find G, I don't know, like right there, we've got that same thing holding true where that's going to be the fourth note of that sequence. The fourth note of that one, third one of that one, the second one, and the first of that one. And there's still 4, 5, flat 7, 1. And there's still 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3. And there's still flat 7, 1, flat 3, 4. And there's still 1, flat 3, 4, 5. So the idea is that little root cluster allows me to kind of find, again, the root in the midst of 3 strings and find 4 different ways to surround it. Why does that matter? Because if I'm kind of down here, I can approach it from that group of 4 notes. If I'm up here, or so I can approach it from any one of those different spots, and I can do the same thing with octaves. Not with the 2 though. So it's kind of, we can do the same thing right there. Oh, sorry. Actually, you're going to have to bend up to that flat 3 there. But the point being is you can do those root clusters. It's just one of the big goals of this course is to make it such that for those of us that have been banging around in the pentatonic for centuries, but kind of feel, because of the approach of like, all right, almost all of us were taught, find the note on the low E string and play pattern number 1. That is our perception of the pentatonic. And so breaking out of that 6-string, find the root there, and that's kind of, we just start there. And for many intermediate guitar players, their solo, if they want to go to B flat, the first note of their solo is going to be there. And generally speaking, that's my imitation of an intermediate guitar solo. It always starts. So we're taught to just kind of like find the roots, which is good, but we're not taught to go, hey, you know, what if I take this note, this is the root here, but and what are the different ways I can play around that root, and instead of just kind of going, all right, I found the root in the second octave. Well, from there, what are the different ways I can approach it? So, amongst other things, that's one of the kind of things that I'm working on. And the interesting thing about that is you heard me kind of calling out the scale degree numbers. One of the big parts of this mission for me, and we're going to get to the gear back in just a moment, but kind of had to go there. Francesco, you got me going, so thank you for that. But the idea is so many of us think of the pentatonic and all of our scales as shapes. So one of the big hurdles that I'm trying to figure out how I can make it really easy for other guitar players to get over that hurdle is to begin to see, instead of just seeing a pentatonic shape, if I'm in A, the notes of that A minor pentatonic are A, C, D, E, G, A. So, all right, A, C, D, E, G, A. So a bunch of the exercises around just kind of getting people used to doing more than just kind of going, I'm playing this shape. And I'm actually kind of, all right, that's the 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. There's only 5 notes. I guess that's the 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3. And why that matters, that chord is a bunch of 1s, 5s, and flat 3. There's the 1, there's the 5, and there's the flat 3. And guess what? And those are the notes out of minor pentatonic you can resolve to over that chord. So knowing where the 1, flat 3, and 5 are is really important. But knowing that those are A, C, and E, and A, C, and E, and A, and C, And knowing that that's a thank you whoever gave the thumbs up or the heart there. Thank you very much. That is the 4 and the flat 7. Why those notes matter is that as much as we got the resolution, that 4, the 4 creates tension. This is a flat 7. You don't want to hang out there over this chord. Now, this is where knowing what those note names are, as in A, C, and E, becomes valuable because we're targeting, hey, how about that A, that C, and that E? Or, I don't know, that A, and that C, and that E. We can find those notes anywhere. And again, we're not stuck in flipping the penalty box pattern number 1. But wait, there's more. What happens over this G chord? And I've talked about this a little bit. This G major chord, the notes are G, B, and D. Well, of those 3 notes, only the G and the D, as in the G and the D, are in the A minor pentatonic. And guess what over this chord? So I want to outline those 2 chords. I've done this before. You can hear me outlining the chords through the notes I'm resolving to over the respective chord. So that's a lot more than this. I don't know, let me find the root on the low E string and play the notes. So that makes a lot of sense to me. But getting the rest of the world there who kind of goes, is still kind of their lens is looking at the pentatonic, just find a note on low E string, and wheedly, 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 wheedly. I'm trying to find a way of doing that is straightforward, makes sense, and the theory part of it isn't to scare people that just want to go wheedly, wheedly, wheedly with the pentatonic. So that's my day. In any case, if you're interested in, I'm sending little batches of diagrams to different people, and I'll probably send some little video along with it or put up some little thing somewhere. So if you're interested, Doug Doppler Music at gmail.com, subject line pentatonic. All right, let me get caught up on the conversation here. What do I think of the Audi's MM520 headphones that came out? My guess is those are the headphones that I've not tried. Hold on. Let me not do this. Hold on. Adding that to the list. MM520 headphones. Okay. Attempting to be organized here. Let's see how I do. Carlos, what's up, my dear friend? Video, or I should say video. I owe you a phone call. Shlomo, what's going on? No new amps gear for me, but I did pick up a toolkit at a garage sale this morning for $5. That's something. That is great. I commend your acquisition. Awesome. I love to see the camaraderie here. It warms my heart on a level that really nothing else does in this way. Step out for a bit. All right. Albert, see you in a bit. Okay. Eric, what's going on? Good morning. School's in session. Something's going on. I don't know. Okay. And I love onion rings. I do too, but it's not great for making friends. Dennis, good morning. All right. Laugh aloud. Stealing my licks. Oh, come on. There we go. Sonny, what's going on, my friend? Great to see you. And if you've got any questions, Sonny is a dear old friend of decades, who is kind of jumping back into the gear and playing thing head first. He's a guy like the rest of us have other things in addition to just playing going on in his life, like work. But in any case, Sonny, again, do not be bashful about asking questions. All right, getting to my list. Tim, your question was about the Badlanders. So behind me, you see a pair of Badlanders. So I'm going to attempt to constrain myself, but it's going to be difficult. There was a Rev E dual rectifier that was here for a good 5 weeks, and every day, 5-6 hours a day, playing through that amp. And the process of that, at a certain point, instead of kind of going, all right, well, here are the chug tones, and here's this, the amp kind of said, turn the gain down and see what happens. One of the things, in my opinion, about these rectifier amps, or any amps, I'm going to try and make this all people, all amps, with a little bit of specification around these amps. they have a tendency to kind of go, let me find the one sound that I bought this piece of gear for. Duh, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? Fender amplifier, super reverb. I want to find a great Stevie Ray bluesy type of tone. But if instead of letting the amp and the legacy of the amp define that experience, you kind of go, huh. And so there is a Bandmaster reverb that's over here. That's an amp that one of the things that I'm looking forward to doing a better job of here. And I'm going to kind of have to figure out the miking and all of that so I can get it in the box, but I'll figure it out. And it may be a matter of using the two-note stuff, which has a ton of different cabinets, that I'll be able to find a cabinet that's really close or exactly the same for virtually any cabinet here, and that's going to be one of the ways I can get there. All that to say, with that two-channel Fender amplifier, if you use an A-B box to toggle between the two channels, a distortion pedal, and maybe some delay into channel 1, now all of a sudden, you've got kind of this cool, crunchy sort of thing that you can make Marshall-esque. Not what we think of when we look at a super reverb. And the idea is kind of looking at that piece of gear and go, what else can I do besides the main thing? So I sat with this, I kind of went there. Badlander is part of the rectifier series, so as people go to initially play it, they're going to think, chug, 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 and there's nothing wrong with that. It does it great. Unlike these amplifiers, you can actually turn the bass up all the way. There is a tighter, arguably less energy in the low end, which, in my opinion, is one of the benefits of that amplifier over this one. You got to be careful of how hard you push the bass here, because it can get unruly. It's just the way the amp is. It is what it is. I love this, but you'll never see anybody with the bass on 10 on a dual rectifier. The great thing on those amps, and this, by the way, and I see some comments coming in, but let me stay the Focus Fox. Let me see if I can just kind of keep myself on track here, because I can easily. First of all, Kevin, good morning. Hold on. I'm too many pages also to learn from others. All right, good. All right, so here's the thing. So generally speaking, where people go with the Badlander, they're thinking it's a dual rack that's got a tighter low end and is using L34s, and which is great. Where I start with any amp, as I plug into a cabinet, I plug the guitar straight in, and I use no effects. I want to have a conversation with the amp. I want the amp to tell me who it is. I want to introduce myself to the amp without the benefit of kind of all the, the kind of... So if I, yeah, I can do that. This... That's a heck of a lot harder without little verb and a lot of delay. That's the plex, by the way. So if I turn all that stuff off, being that guy, you have to work a little bit harder to do it, but it's actually where you and the guitar and the amp really begin to have the real conversation, that when you add the effects back in, it completes the dialogue. But finding out who you are with the amp without any effects, just through the cabinet, is going to tell you a huge amount of information that the effects, I can use those exact same effects with a couple of different amplifiers that are close enough that is going to be almost the overarching thing, that is the effects there, versus the nuance of the amplifier. One of the things that I want to find out is, what is the nuance of that amplifier? What does it make me do as a player in terms of, when you have that dry, a signal, and you're kind of... that's going to make you work a little bit harder for your take-home pay. But once you kind of learn to relax into the amp, squeaky chair or not, then you kind of begin to discover the personality. So the Badlander, I have fallen in love with this amplifier. I absolutely love. This is the 90s dual rectifier, and this is the standard quote-unquote dress. This is the black and chrome. That's what I call it. It's technically black diamond plate chrome chassis. But the Badlander is the rectifier that I fell in love with. I've spent the better part of an instrumental album and a vocal album writing and recording on those for years. So going back after playing this and plugging into that, I was like, right. Most of the time, I spent my time on the middle drive mode, which is called crunch. And so because I've gotten a little bit high gainier in my approach, I found myself going into the crush mode, which is there's basically clean, crunch, and crush. But one of the important things about the Badlander, because it's a little bit more British in design, actually these amps are all intended to be British in design, is that turning up the power amp section is where a lot of the magic is. And I've talked about this concept a lot, but this is super important. Again, if you're hearing this for the first time, if you liken a distortion pedal to preamp distortion and an overdrive pedal to power amp gain or drive, that's the nuance. And they have a different, when you think of kind of that intense 80s and 90s, especially 80s kind of metal sound, a big part of that is that distortion in the front end of the amplifier. If you go back to the 70s, a big part of those sounds that made them so organic, like if you think about Lynyrd Skynyrd, you've got these lovely tones where a big part of that is the power amp of this working and your gain coming from there. And there's a different type of response that the amp and the playing has in response to what the amp is doing. So both of those are part of the magic of that amplifier. And this rig that I described here a little bit earlier actually started off on, there's a pair of Badlander 50 combos that are over there. It's like, how can I take two amplifiers, run them in stereo, but choose the three different modes on to the different amps, but still kind of have it work in mono. AB box into the front end so I could choose which Badlander I was going into, and then with a little bit of switch magic, choosing channels on one of them and then having the other one set on that. So I could have basically the Badlander has two identical channels, and each of which has three modes. So the ability to have three channels in each of the three modes, AB box going to the front end, and then switching switching channels on one of the amps, they sum together and come back out in stereo. That started off on the Badlander, and now I've moved it over to the dual Rex here, although I've added now a fourth option. So I can have the deal is, say for example, you want, for me, the crunch channel, because a lot of the music I play is classic rock influenced and or blues influenced, having the gain set at different levels in two different instances of that channel is one of the things that I would probably be inclined to do for my music. That is to say, experiment with turning the master volume up and down and the gain up and down across the different modes, including the clean mode. It's going, what happens if I turn the gain all the way up and the master all the way down? The other thing that's great about it's got built-in cab clone IR with 8 selections per channel. So one of the other things, if you're going to use that for direct recording, when and where possible, and that's the reason this little cabinet right here has been pulled out in particular, is that right there is a rectifier 112 cabinet. It's wide body, 23 inches wide. And that's the sort of cabinet, per conversation like Eric and I have had and we've talked about a lot, when using cab clone IR, any reactive load, the best thing you can possibly do for your tone is keep an actual speaker connected. So what's great about that is you could stick that somewhere in a closet and put a bunch of blankets around it and, just pillows and stuff and kind of keep it quiet, but you can play through it. The other thing is that for this particular rig, I've got a pair of cab clone IR pluses. And in addition to running to actual speakers, I also can bring the amp volume down. That's not a feature that is built into the cab clone IR that's in the back of the Badlanders. That is to say, you could potentially just turn the volume of the amp up and down, but the idea is to get that power amp up to a certain spot where it's giving up enough of the headroom ghost. That is to say, part of the magic of an amplifier is getting in it. People talk about the sweet spot. To me, what that really translates to is you've turned the power amp section of the amp up enough that's going like, oh, I can begin to loosen up a little bit. Because if the power amp section is too tight, again, it's the equivalent of not having anything on there, and it's just. Now, it's a great way to learn to get. Get your kind of groove on without any greasy stuff, because it's a lot easier to hide your rhythmic inconsistency behind a bunch of grease, which I'm down with. But when it comes to really kind of trying to make myself the better guitar player that I desperately want to be, and I mean desperately, I find that if I keep the greasy stuff on too much, and it's a help for discovery, but ultimately when it comes time to like, okay, what do I really sound like? I turn off all the stuff and I kind of go, let me throw up the click. Let me see what my time is really like. And, because part of guitar is imagining where we're going to be. And sometimes we got to leave the greasy stuff on to make those jumps. But the other part of it is kind of going, where am I right now? What can I really do? And what can't I do of what I really want to be able to be doing? And if I don't have an honest assessment of what I'm doing, then I'm kind of kidding myself. And I will tell you firsthand, it is confronting. It's not a feel-good thing, which is why it's easy to keep all the delays and reverb on and not, go ahead and do all hard practicing. But I would say 99.9% of anybody that's here hanging out today has been playing for enough period of time that we're all in, like 100+% in. So we all suffer from the like, well, I really feel like playing, I'll practice that tomorrow. Well, the problem is tomorrow becomes tomorrow, becomes tomorrow, and becomes tomorrow. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. What I'm trying to do is share the realistic conversations I'm having with myself about like, well, how serious am I about how serious I am? And so I just want to leave that with you. And in the midst of all of this, Steve Karras, gosh darn it, I owe you a phone call. But I stalked you on Facebook, and I see that you're doing gigging, which is great. I love you, bro. Great to see you. All right. So in any case, all right, I see some comments here. So let me just take a quick moment. I think I've said plenty on the Badlander. Tim, in closing, I have 5 of them. I love them. If you're looking for a suggestion on the cabinet, if you don't already have a rectifier cabinet, the oversized rectifier 412 slant is a great place to start. Just, you can't go wrong. It's big and bold, and because it's angled even on a shallow stage, you're going to hear what's actually coming out of the amp, which is super, 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 super important. Okay. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Kevin, what's going on, my man? Hello. 925 in the house. That's the area code where we are, by the way. Okay. I never heard. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I never had all this growing up in the 70s and 80s. Good. All right, good. The funny thing is, there is, I've got my list here, so that's going to help me keep on the Focus Fox. But here's the thing: is that one of the things that as I've got the practice police out, so I am doing what I call ramp ups. One of the things that I'm not good at, basically I want to get to most of the time 100% accuracy. I did the math, and I think I've got it right. If I play all 5 pounders of the minor pentatonic, repeat the top note, repeat the top pattern before I come back down to 264 notes. What I'm trying to get to the point is playing them as 8th note triplets, going from 80 BPM and 5 BPM increments up to 160 BPM, is I can play every single one of those without a mistake. I'm not there. I'm running at 98 or 99% accuracy. Actually, it depends. Some of them, and they're what I call tween tempos, that for whatever reason, you can play it faster, you can play it slower, but there are these tween tempos, which are really good to identify for me 115 and 120 was a tween tempo, which is why it's kind of one of the tempos that I focus on. All right, that's going to be, a daily driver, where sometimes what I'll do with the daily drivers, I'll come down first thing in the morning and I'll start there and kind of go, okay, let's see what's happening at the tween tempo. What generally begins to happen as you chip away at it, and a good place to start would be to, like, if 120 is your treble tempo, go to 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120. And do that every day, and you're going to find that all of a sudden 120 is no longer the tween tempo. And there's going to be maybe 125, but at a certain point, that tween spot in the greater scheme of 80 to 160, that little spot, you're going to get rid of it. But it does take regular practice. And then one of the other things is you're training and retraining your hands. It does take time to build the muscle memory. And if in that process, you kind of take a little break, there is a little bit of backsliding that happens. And I discovered that last night as I sat down and ran my various pentatonics. Been busy rigging, but that's just part of the natural processes. But just kind of going, okay, I need to spend 15 minutes of every day just working with the pentatonic, doing ramp ups, 80 BPM, and just going through that. And the end result will be, in about 3 months, I should be able to play 80 through 160 BPM, the entire thing, at least at 99% accuracy. That means that basically I can get 2 mistakes for the entire thing up and down the neck. And ideally what I want to do is get to 100% accuracy, where I can do all of those. And I think within about 60 days, I'll be able to hit that, simply because I will have done it so many times. If I said, hey, form an open position G chord, you're going to put all the fingers in the right place and play it. You just know it. And the same thing is true, and that's where the ramp-ups happen. You're building the muscle memory, and I can't stress enough the benefit of going, you know what, I'm not interested in fast. I'm interested, and I want to hear every note, equal volume, equal duration. And by the way, listen for the sound of your G string. I'm going to pull the G string. We're listening for that when we leave. And part of the cure for that is that first finger. When I'm playing on the second string, the tip of that first finger is muting the third string. So as I come from here, even if I'm leaving here, I clip that string because of that first finger right there as I'm fretting that note. And you heard the D string that time. The right hand is muting 2 strings below where I'm fretting. So when I move from here, right there, the D string should be muted by the right hand. So hearing, where is the mistake, what caused it? Mistakes are always caused by some physical shortcoming. So kind of go, oh, what am I doing there? Okay, how do I adjust it? The other thing about this guitar, the Flying V sits about probably a good 2 inches lower here than every other guitar that I've got, because of the way the upper bout is. The other guitars have more meat here, so they sit higher on the leg. So as an end result, the angle of my right hand is ever so slightly different. So that is here, that fleshy part of my right hand is on the D string, where because of the natural way the Flying V has a tendency to sit, I have to just change my right hand just a little bit. So there's just subtle things. Pretty much as you're playing a Strat, a Tele, kind of an SG, just about every other guitar. They're pretty similar about there, but it took me a while before I realized, oh, okay, this is why I'm having that problem. I just need to make a subtle adjustment and just be aware of that. I rabbit trailed there, but it's important, and I think somebody out there will benefit from that. So well worth taking the time. All right. I hope, Tim, that answers your question. What a great amp, and feel free to check in. I don't know how soon it's going to be, but I'm doing this rectifier project series. This guy, I finished this week. There's a Rev E, a 92 Rev E, a serial number in the 400s, really early amp that I've got all the demos for. I've actually got to fly in the talking portions. I haven't shot those yet, but that's coming soon. But I need to talk to my friends at Mesa Boogie and see if it would be beneficial for them for me to hit the Badlander before I actually put out the Rev E video. In which case, that's going to happen pretty soon because everything I'm doing here, I'm gonna do there. And actually, I learned on the Badlanders, and those are amps that they're my second favorite amp. I wrote the vast majority of the songs and parts and recorded the demos and all of that on those amps. So they're an integral part of my workflow, and I love them. All right. Rabbit trailing we go. Hello, Mrs. Doppler. Nice to see you. Long time no see. All right. So that's why I was talking about, the YouTube stuff. The mistakes. Mistakes are really informative because, yes, we wish we had done this, and this is where this whole pentatonic, thinking about it not just in terms of the shapes, but is this going to be easy to find? That's the question of the day. If it is, I'll be able to drag and drop it pretty easily. So give me just a moment. I should be able to drag this on top of the screen. So give me a quick sec. Date added. The great thing is that just because we learn something one way, doesn't mean that we can't learn it in another way. And, in many cases, the work that I'm very excited about doing with the pentatonic. Come on, preview for me, baby. Are they all on a 1-up anywhere? Okay, that's not what I want. Okay, how about you? It's not going to be that easy then. All right. Well, for example, I can drag this guy in. Hang on. Let's drag you in. Okay, we're going to put you here. This guy right here. If I drag and drop the shape, let's see if we can see it on this. Oh, that's really kind of almost impossible to see. No, you can see the fret numbers there, or I should say the finger numbers. Let's put it over there. Or sorry, the scale degree numbers. I'm trying to talk and place this at the same time. So that graphic right there, that if you look at that, that's the bottom 4 notes of the minor pentatonic. Most of us just thought about, hey, let me just find that bottom note and put my first finger there, and I'm just going to solo using the shape. But if we'd been taught from the beginning, hey, 1 flat 3 4 5. Like, hey, by the way, this chord is made up of a bunch of 1s, flat 3s, and 5s. So you can go and resolve with that note. Resolve with flat 3. Or resolve with the 5. That's why it's good to go to those numbers. Oh, okay. We're done. Right? How long did that take? So the neat thing is because you've potentially been toiling around for a couple of decades kind of going, and I'm not saying this is the case with you, but so many of us kind of go, I play these shapes, but I don't always know which note to resolve to because that's not how we think of the pentatonic. But the frustration about this is the problem, I now want the solution. And the downside with YouTube is that there are lots of people with an opinion. I'm going to not take my own bait there. I'm going to leave it there. In any case, yeah, I'm going to leave it there for right now. Okay, where did my comments go? Come on. There we go. All right. All right. I wore out my tapes and heads and needles. There we come on. There we go. All right, Evan, what's happening? Someone likes Mesa Boogie. I think you may be new to the stream. Welcome aboard if you're still here. Pleasure to meet you. And yes, somebody does like Mesa Boogie. That's why I love my private power station. Cannot wait to get the Friedman IR load and a Wampler power head pedal. Come on. You have got it bad, and I love that. Playing right now, unplugged. There we go. Come on. Okay. Have 2 oversized 412. You are going to have so much fun. So here's the thing. Again, with the Badlander, it is not as big on the low end as these guys, and I actually really like that. One of the big mistakes that some of my fellow rectifier brethren and sisterin make is they want to turn up the bass and get into bass player land. If you listen to any of your favorite records where somebody's using a rectifier or that type of sound, there's a very clear point where the guitar stops in the low end and the bass starts. And one of the things that I love about the Badlander is that it's great for where it sits in music without having to worry about a high-pass filter, which for those of you who don't know what a high-pass filter is, generally speaking, if you're playing live, the front of house engineer is going to put something on your guitar such that everything below 100 hertz is cut out and the highs pass through. And generally in the studio, you would be inclined to do the same thing such that the guitar is out of the way of the bass, and kind of the sub-harmonic content of that stuff can get in the way of the bass as well. Oscar, greetings to you. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, 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 welcome. Okay, which picks do I use? That's a great question. I'm a Dunlop 1mm Tortex guy for decades. I do have in the pick drawer and the downstairs string drawer a secondary bag of picks. And so in my secondary bag of picks, every so often you will have a guitar tone that's really stiff. And especially this is the case with playing with a piezo, where having a bunch of different picks that are not only different thicknesses, but also different pick texture. And I'm not going to bore you guys with playing through different picks today, but I keep this bag here specifically so I can go, oh, I need that particular thickness and softness and texture of the actual material the pick is made out of, so I can get that particular sound. However, 99.9% of the time, my custom-made Dunlop 1mm Tortexes are the way to get there. And by the way, as Kevin will probably know, Kevin Carr that is, the different dies when they make the custom picks change the material, they change the pliability of the pick. That is to say, the 1mm black picks versus the stock 1mm blue picks. These are a little bit less stiff. They're not quite as stiff. Same thickness, but my buddy Brian Kehoe told me that basically the die affects the if you will, kind of the anatomy of the pick. So they're a little bit, they feel about 1/3 of the way what is this? Come on, come here, Green. Where'd you go? So this is kind of what I have a tendency, though this is branded Kemper, this is what I think of as the Kirk Hammett pick. So this is, I think this is an 88.88 millimeter. So this feels about 1/3 of the way from a 1mm to a 0.88. It even though the thickness is actually 1mm, but it just feels just a little. It has a little bit more give, maybe a quarter of the way there. But it's just got a little bit more flexibility, which I actually like. Great question, because they're hugely important. Mark Turvey, good morning, Maestro. Always a pleasure. The man with the tone in his hands. I'm using the 50 watt. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention. So the other thing that's great about the Badlander is don't ignore the 50 watt or the 20 watt settings if you're running the 100 watt amp. And same thing with the Bold. It's just and Spongy Power, or it's actually labeled Variac in that one. Just try all of them. They're all a little bit different, and especially if you have different guitars that you migrate between. There are times that the 50 watt has less headroom, and the difference in the 20 watt version is you're going between what is that tube terminology? You're looking at old age in action. Pentotriode. And so what's happening is that in pentode, the tube is acting with greater efficiency. In triode mode, the amp is you have less headroom to work with. Now, the thing about that is I generally use that to, one, you can use it to create stiffness if you want really tight rhythm parts, in which case maximum headroom. But other times, especially if I'm going for something a little bit more classic rock, and I like that kind of power amp softness, or I want to take a clean sound, which on the Badlander, I love the clean tone. It's actually got a great clean tone, but it can be at times a little bit more rigid because of the natural tightness of the amplifier. So by being able to use the variac power in combination with the triode functionality, you can really soften things up. And there are many people that would think of that as, oh, it's just quiet, or I'm not going to use that. And I could understand it. It was like 100 watts, 50 watts, 20 watts. I must be loud, not as loud, and quiet. That's if I didn't know, that's what I would think. In fact, that's pretty much what I thought until I kind of went, well, wait a second, let me just investigate this. And the great thing about Braxel, to your point of like not having stuff figured out, sometimes we just figure it out. Okay, all right, let me get back to work here. Nandini, hello, using the 50 watt. Okay, oh, good. Just such a great amp. Again, I've got 2 of the 50 watts here. I love them. All right, Miguel, what's going on, mi buen amigo? ¿Cómo está? Advice on downsizing gear like guitars, amps, and foot pedal, or should I just go follow my instincts and buy new gear? Okay, let me go. Downsizing. Okay. Let me, you've been added to the list. I'm attempting to keep myself on track here. Junie asked about the Helix Native. Come on. So Helix Native is Line 6's plugin that basically has all the juicy stuff from Helix, the modeling platform. Really powerful in the studio. It's a funny thing, as I've been having a conversation in the back of my head, which is, when does Helix Stadium Native launch? And so, generally speaking, the funny thing is that I play on Sunday mornings at my home church. Not often, but and usually I play bass. But 2 Sundays ago I played guitar. And the funny thing is, I love Helix Stadium, but I've got my kind of go-to Helix, good old OG Helix sound that I just plug into it, and it's just like, I could port that preset over to Helix Stadium, but literally I just plug into my good old Helix, and it's just like, it's the sound that is in my head of when I'm in that situation when I go for. So it's sitting upstairs in a Helix backpack, and I just haul it out. So that is to say, I regularly use, or upon occasion, I regularly use just my good old Helix, even though I've gotten both Helix Stadium form factors, which have used extensively here, and will use again in terms of Helix Native. Again, that plugin, I'm kind of waiting until Helix Stadium Native comes out. And I knew that sounds funny because, again, I'm beholden to my lovely Helix floor. I love that thing. But in terms of the in-DAW experience, I'm waiting for Stadium. I know that seems a bit of an oxymoron, but that yes. And you, Riley, by the way, I did not see it when you were on the stream at the end last week, but Chris pointed out, and I happened to see the end of his comments, that you want to connect Doug Doppler Music. You've got my email address at Gmail. Hit me. I would love to work together. Yes. And for you, always yes. Okay, Braxel. Do I like Tonex Plus? Broke down and bought one because it comes with the new Royal 45 collection pack, and I had $39 in jam points. Okay, so this is one of the interesting things. And then we're going to get your headphone question in a moment. And I'm going to have, by the way, raise them up. I'm not going to bother pulling up the slide. But first, coffee, and then second, cheers to you. I love the Tonex stuff. Let me tell you what I love about the Tonex stuff and my fear about the Tonex stuff. Each one of the modeling families does its thing. So, for example, the Fractal stuff, and I've done a mild amount of tweak. Which one? There we go. Come here. Oh, hang on. Let me. Flippin' A. This is kind of one of my favorite things about daring to kind of go, what if I tried something that I wouldn't normally try on here? So that's the dual rectifier. So this amp does have an improved clean channel. This is the 90s dual rec over the previous dual recs. But the thing I learned about the Rev E is like, it's got a great clean channel. It's like, it's in the 400s of these amps that are well into the tens of thousands. I was like, I didn't know it did that. And so the point being is that starting with a clean tone is great, but in the world of effects, the fractal stuff, so that's the VP4, that's nothing, it doesn't have any modeling in it. It does have drive, but there's none on there. The fractal effects are probably no slight to anybody else, because I pretty much use a ton of everything for different reasons and love it for the differences. But in the world of just like, flippin' A, that sounds amazing. There's a reason Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, John Petrucci, ... all use fractal effects. All of them. It's like not a split, Joe uses this. The three of the guys that are most renowned for iconic guitar tone, they're using fractal. The effects are phenomenal and the deep editor is phenomenal. That said, when it comes to the different modeling devices, that same sort of difference that you get, the Eventide stuff has a sound. I love the Universal Audio gear. One of my favorite things about the UA Starlight and UA, whatever the name of the reverb pedal. Starlight is the delay. The reverb pedal, it's called the Golden. Is that it has the go-to Lexicon 224, an officially licensed Lexicon 224 reverb algorithm that's great. And Universal Audio made a delay called a Cooper Time Cube. It's a stereo delay that has low and high pass filters. It's got the ability to have dotted eighth and dotted quarter on either side. And if you register your UA Starlight, UA Effects, you can get that in there. So it basically means I can create what I call a studio to stage round trip. That is, say, the same exact plugins, although you can't transfer them one back and forth to the other. You can tweak the algorithm such that is, you can't take a preset from my plugin and bring it over to my UAFX stomp. However, the algorithm is the same, so I can dial in the same sounds. And the ability to have the same sounds, algorithms that I've got in the studio with my studio plugins in my live rig is a huge deal. And that was the impetus of my kind of going, well, I love that Cooper Time Cube in the studio. How can I do that with my Badlanders? And so getting back to your question about the modelers, I absolutely love what the folks in Italy are doing there. The whole point about each one of these different modelers, kind of my Sunday morning go-to has been and probably will always be Helix or Helix Stadium. It just works perfect for that environment. It's not that it doesn't work great for other environments, but it really shines there. What's great about boy, we're lighting up over here, so I want to be careful. I don't miss anything. Hang on a second. Okay. I'm going to get that. All right. So the thing about the Tonix experience, of all the plugins and all the amp modelers out there, it's my favorite to shred on. The shred tones are hands down my favorite. It just like there's something about what they hear and they create that when I play through it on the higher gain tones, I'm like, I just instantly go into shred mode. I think there's a certain amount of compression that they build into their algorithms, and also just the tonality, the way I play, the guitars that I play, the way I play them. The Tonix stuff is just a brilliant fit for that, and it's almost the part that's scary is it's almost too easy to shred. That's the part that kind of freaks me out, but they're just great. And that is to say, when you play through a real amplifier, you have to, again, if I turn off all the goody stuff and I just play, either through the clean or the dirty channel, I can, here, well, I've got compression, chorus, delay, and reverb. I'm going to turn my mic. All right, now I'm going to turn all that stuff off, and all of a sudden, it's a lot more barren. And there is a gate that's on there, so you'll hear it coming in a little bit. For this particular clean sound, you'll hear it grab a little bit more than I would normally have if I were just using a clean preset. You get the idea. And I add just a little bit of a lot. So those effects, and again, I realize with the mic up here, that decay, this decay, like, those are tube amps. I'm capturing it with Cab Clone IR Pluses. I do have a speaker connected to each of the Cab Clone IR Pluses, so both amps are hearing that. But the quality of the trails on that's just nuts. That's as good as anything I would expect in the studio where it's happening in post. That just kind of blows my mind. All right. Braxel, your question about the MM520. I believe that is a studio headphone that Christian Cola, the guy that is kind of my audio... Christian has the Christian Cola Academy, whatever the heck it's called. I'm a member there. I purchased an annual subscription there, or maybe lifetime. I don't remember what it is that I've got. But he's one of the guys that, as I endeavored to really understand how I could get better mixes on stuff that I'm doing for gear demos, and as I'm demoing stuff, as I prepare to go and have Mike Fraser mix the albums that I'm working on, how I have a better sense about making things work together and understanding the elements of putting together the right equalization for a part of how it's going to sit, and how to equalize the other things and make them sit, and the different things to keep in mind, such that, in the same way, if I'm going to play a solo, it's good to know what the chord tones are so I know to resolve to them. If you don't know what a chord tone is, you're going to have a much harder time resolving to it. So the point being is that I believe he talked about these headphones and if I'm correct, they have the ability to model different headphones. I could be wrong, so I'll go back and do a little bit of research because I've got it in my notes here. In any case, I've not done checked them out. I am generally Molting Magic. So these are my go-to Audio Technica M50, whatever they are. These are kind of, if you look at anytime you go online, you'll see, I don't know, Joe Bonamassa, fill in the blank guitar players in the studio playing with other guitar players and band members. 99% of the time, they're all wearing these headphones. Why? These are the NS10s. Oh, that didn't quite come out the way I meant to say it. But back in the day, the NS10M was the de facto studio monitor every studio had. So that's why I went out and bought NS10Ms for my home studio, because that way I had an idea what mixes on my speakers would translate on terms of any pre-production that I did, how it would translate into a larger studio, because the speakers were the same. It was apples to apples. Now, the outboard gear would have been different, but it allowed me to have that lens. The thing about NS10Ms is they were notoriously bass light, and sometimes people would put tissues over the tweeters because they could be a little bit bright, and or by reducing the high end, made it seem like there was more low end. But you had to imagine low end there to kind of as you were building your mixes. These guys are actually really, they have a really good frequency response. But like the NS10M, they're reasonably affordable, and they are the de facto standard that you're going to have in every studio, which is why having a pair of these is really great. Now, the thing about them is they molt. So literally you can just kind of see they're molting. They just do this. I don't know why they haven't figured that out yet, but it's what they do. So you end up with bits and pieces of headphone molt in your head and shoulders, and it's weird. But I hate wearing headphones. I absolutely loathe wearing headphones. I prefer wearing in-ears. So the funny thing is, for the albums that I'm working on, I recently came across some photos of Jared James Nichols is a guest on one of the tracks. And I came across the photos of Jared in the studio with us. And I noticed everybody's got those on. And it doesn't look like I've got any headphones on, but I'm actually wearing in-ears. And Zorro, the drummer, was doing the same. So you'll find the church/worship guys all have a set of in-ear monitors. That's just kind of what they do. And if they go into the studio, because most of the time, although mine are not custom formed, they will have a pair of custom formed in-ear monitors that are their equivalent of their NS10s, because they take them everywhere they go, or their equivalent of those. So it's just like that way you know exactly what you're hearing everywhere you go. And that's really cool. I have, if I can find it, one of the things is that we live in this world of abstractions where things don't seem to be related to one another, but actually are. Back in the day, those of us that were around back in the day, they used to have these things called cassettes. And after cassettes, they had these things called CDs. And you would burn a cassette or a CD, or run a mix to your, you would run a mix to your cassette or burn a CD, and you would take that to your car. Guys, I'm not going to find it. Gosh, oh, I know where it is. It's right here. That's not the one I want. I know it's up there, though. Where are you? Come here, you little bugger. All right, it's not where I think I put it, and usually these days I'm getting pretty good about where I think I put stuff. All right, so basically, on these devices, here's the thing is that I remember a certain online personality kind of ranting about the fact that Apple keeps changing their output devices and connectors. It's because they keep trying to get more bandwidth through. I get it. It's frustrating. So this guy, the headphone jack is a USB-C, which is actually kind of convenient, but all our headphones, generally speaking, the connectors aren't that. So I recently got an adapter that not only allows you to kind of go your traditional kind of 1/8-inch mini jack there, but also has another parallel USB-C connector on it. So you can connect to this, listen to your headphones on an airplane, and keep a battery pack connected at the same time. And that's the little dongle that I wanted to show you that's decided to sprout little legs. But these are things that as we kind of have this musician experience, we have. And by the way, Amazon Prime Day is coming up. I think it's the 25th or 26th or 27th, something like that. That's a great time to kind of fill out any of the missing things that your studio is kind of needing on the kind of home electronics front. All right, Miguel asked about downsizing, and I'm going to come back and make sure I catch anything else after that. So, I met a guitar player at Gary Brower's place this week, and he started talking about his collection. And as he did, I'm going, where does this guy put all the cases? Because once you get 10 guitars, you've got generally 10 guitar cases or 10 gig bags, and it starts to expand from there. You all of a sudden had a space issue, and this guy, I think, got at least 50 guitars, maybe 100. So at a certain point, and we had a thing where we used to have 2 offsite storages. I have a room here in the house that I'm trying to find this particular. It's basically a bunch of cables that are connected in this kind of overwrap that I want to put into this rig so I can get from that PVC over there and all the different cables with just one single kind of run. And I've got one that I bought from this guy that's 100 feet long, and the other that's like 50 or 40 feet. I can't find the 40-foot one. It's in a little backpack. But I have a room that basically everything that was in the second offsite storage, we got rid of that offsite storage, and that room is filled with stuff. So the downsizing comes from a couple of different things. One, I was in a metal band. I had 5 stacks. Now I play a jazz lounge thing, make 5 times the money and need, 1/100th the amp size. There's a certain point where we just kind of go, hey, let's do this. So a couple of tips and tricks. Market value, if you go on to Reverb, let me just get this primed here. Okay. Here we go. Buying and selling gear. So first of all, I can see there's some folks watching. In case we haven't met, I'm Doug. It's my pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for spending your Saturday with me. This is something that's near and dear to my heart. I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite Reverb tweaks for both the buying and the selling, downsizing, upsizing, whatever you're going to do. So let's get to it. And come on. There we go. I'm looking for this right here. We're looking for Google Chrome. And where is the one that I want? Why am I not seeing Reverb? Come on. This is one of those awkward moments in live streaming where you just kind of go cringe. All right, this trap has moved. Oh my word, that's hilarious. All right, hang on a second. All right, why is this Reverb tab not showing up? Come on, gosh darn it. I am laughing at myself at the awkwardness of this moment. All right, then we're going to do this a different way. Let me get over here. Gosh, I hate when this happens. All right, so that's where we are. Okay, good. Reverb. All right, that should be... What the hell? All right, this is me super, super unhappy. By the way, that is this amazing AI artist that I kind of came across. He's actually really cool, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail. I've already lost 4 people here as I'm roaming around looking for my browser. What the hell? My level of annoyance right now. Okay, plan B. Hang on a second. My apologies. All right. There's more than one way to skin a fish. All right. There we go. All right. Reverb. All right. Thank you. Sorry about that, folks. I hate doing that. All right. And let's go to Firefox. And that's not the Firefox I want. I want this one right here. I can already see it. There we go. All right. So here's the deal. If you're looking to kind of downsize or you know, anything, the first place that I go to look for, come on, flipping A, really? Gosh. Is I go on to Reverb. I want to know what the relative value of what I've got is. So I want to show you how I go about doing that. So let's do this. My apologies for the dorking around here. Slightly frustrated with myself, but I'll get over it. So let's just say we have a Badlander 100. 100. And so usually I can type that string in, and that instantly is going to give me a bunch of results here. So first of all, this is going to allow me to look at everything. What I want to do right now is I want to sort this by price low to high. All right, now if there are any Badlander accessories like these knobs, they're going to come up. But this basically begins to tell you what the most affordable versions of this are, besides the people that are boosting their ads. So this is the most affordable. Sorry, my bad. Scroll from here. This is the most affordable Badlander 100 that's currently on Reverb. So I'm going to check that guy. And basically I check that out. I kind of look at the condition, all the different things I want to keep in mind. Okay, excellent, blah, blah, blah. All right, that's great. Now, as I lose my mind because Firefox is not being my friend. Oh, they've changed the way this thing works with these tabs. Okay. So then I can check this other guy, and that's going to open in another tab. So here are the two Badlanders that I will kind of go back and forth and kind of go, all right, you know, as they're both in excellent condition. One's been reduced. They've both been reduced. One's still cheaper. I'm looking at the shipping. One's free shipping. The other's calculate shipping, so on and so forth. So I'll compare those. But really what I want to do is I want to go over to this initial page here. And this is where I'm going to find out what reality is in Badlander world. I'm going to click on all filters. I'm going to scroll down here. And you're going to get to show only sold listings. Select that checkbox. We're going to click show results, and we're going to sort. Now we're going to sort by most recent first. That tells me reality. So this is what the going prices are: $1,600, $1,500. So generally speaking, you don't want to pay any more than that. Now, somebody kind of overpaid on $1,750. So the deal is what we're going to do. And first of all, a really good photo here. I love this guy right here. They're showing you without having to say it. You've got your power cable, you've got your channel foot switch, you've got the amp cover, obviously the amp in nice condition, and all the cabling. So you're kind of like, you're getting all the goods. They told you that in that first photo. That is really smart marketing. That's somebody's thinking about you, and it's still got the flipping tag on the top of it. Even if they took it off and put it back on, this is somebody that's going, hey, I'm speaking your love language, you want to buy this. So the deal is, that's a really good barometer of what you will potentially pay. And here's the other one. And you're able to just kind of go, okay, cool. And this allows you to see what's going on with that. Now, getting back to our main focal point, let me jump back over here. Hello, people. Yeah, I lost people. I have a thing where I can see how many people are online. So for those of you that stick around, the ability to just kind of go, what is the common market price? Now, there are nuances to this. First of all, I generally only list stuff on a Friday afternoon. Why? Because if you happen to sort by the newest listings and you put something up on a Monday and somebody puts up something up on the same product Tuesday and another person on Wednesday, another person on Thursday, another person on Friday, and most people are like, hey, weekend's here, it's Friday, let me see what's going on. Friday is the best day to list. I usually aim for about 2 o'clock Pacific, give or take. That's 5 o'clock New York is when people are getting off work. I only sell to the continental United States, and that's when I list. And my listings are based on when I go in and I look at what the used gear has sold for. So if I want to downsize, I'm like, you know what? And so I'm at a point where the downsizing thing is, I'm actually here. I'm like, there's a bunch of stuff I need album money to mix. Mixing each song is going to be about $2,000 for me, give or take, somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 for each song for the studio and the mix engineer. Guy named Mike Fraser. I'm not going to quote his rate, but there's him in the studio, and it's a top-notch studio in Canada. Mike has mixed and/or produced the likes of Metallica, AC/DC, Joe Satriani. This guy is the deal. So I've got several $1,000s in the kitty saved, but I need more money than I've got saved to do these mixes. So I'm kind of looking around as I'm putting together rigs and whatnot. I'm kind of going, I don't use that. I'm not going to use that. It's time for it to go. And it also takes up space. So downsizing for whatever reason. The other thing is there's downsizing and converting. So let's say, you just like, first of all, I've got all this stuff I don't need and I don't use, but I want to flip that into something else using time to your advantage, because when you decide that you've got to sell something and it's urgent, you're usually going to list it at a price that is a little bit lower, and or you're going to be inclined to take offers where you might sell it for a little bit less than if you just kind of went, I've got a buffer in terms of the time. So the idea is the more time you can give yourself when you're going to sell something, the better off you're going to be. The other thing is that per those listings that I was showing you on Reverb, the other thing that I didn't show you, so let me jump back over here real quick. That's super, super, super important. Let me jump back over here. So as I'm looking at this page here with these guys, what I also want to see is on this listing, listed a month ago, on this listing, listed a month ago, on this listing. If I can scroll, like listed 2 months ago. Okay, that's telling me for that particular piece of gear what the turnover rate is in terms of sell-through on Reverb. That's really important to know. That kind of gives you a sense of how urgent the buyer is in getting these, because the deal is that if you see that there's a fair amount turning over, you can ride the wave of how much you're going to charge for it, because at a certain point the cheapest amp in inventory will sell, and so long as somebody doesn't swoop in and have another amp that they're going to list at that same price, you could be charging an extra $50 or $100 and you're going to get it because somebody's going to come in and there's like, oh, that's the cheapest one in there, I've decided it's time to buy, I'm buying yours. And that's again where having a little bit more time, you're playing a slightly longer game in the market there. But if you think about selling 10 pieces of gear and you get an extra $50 or $100 for each one of those pieces of gear, that sort of strategy is really, really, really important. And again, being conscious of, before I go to list something, I will watch the market. So I'll open up Reverb tabs, just like you saw me do. I will take a look at all the solds. I'll look at the condition. I'll look at, it says excellent. I want to see what does excellent look like to them. I want to see how frequently they sold. I want to see what change, if any, there was in the asking price. That person that got $1,750, that was probably a point where the others, the $1,600 amps had sold out of inventory. Somebody saw the one that was $1,750 and they bought it, and or that was $1,750 shipping included. So that's the other thing you want to look at. So sometimes it'll be $1,600, but you got to pay the shipping, and the $1,750 was shipping included. So by the time you calculate the shipping, you're like, you know what, that's the one I want to go for. So obviously we want to take all these things into account, both as a seller and a buyer. So we have to figure out, what we're going to do in terms of selling. Do I sell inside only the United States? I don't want to deal with anybody outside the United States. It's just kind of a pain in the butt. I will from time to time, if somebody from Canada reaches out saying, hey, I really want this, can you please do this? If they have enough positive, only 5-star reviews on Reverb, I'm in. So in terms of the downsizing, the upsizing, that's kind of my basic strategy. I hope that is a help to you, my friend. because that's something that I think really matters. Pizza Americana, that a girl. I love that I can listen in here and have great takeaways for applications for non-guitar situations. You are the best, Melissa. And by the way, you're a brilliant graphic designer. I love what you're doing for your work. Nitin, what's going on, my man? How is that new Telecaster? Oh, dude, enroll in college, taking some music classes, but I'm choosing between guitar 1 or 2, music theory, musicianship, recording arts. What would you prefer? Sorry, got it. Okay. I got dual enrolled in a college for next year, and I'm going to take some music classes. But I'm choosing between guitar 1 or 2, music theory, and musicianship, recording arts. What would I pick? It's a great question. Thank you for including me in that thought process. It depends on the school in terms of recording arts. If, for example, they had a really cool studio, and or the person teaching that class was somebody like, oh, wow, they've done this and this and this, that would be one. And first of all, being in college, having a hands-on studio experience where you can place microphones, I would say that would definitely be a win. The only thing you want to avoid is some schools, at least back in the day, sometimes the studios were kind of, so, what does the facility look like? Chances are you'll be able to see some photos online. Music theory. The caged system. The cage system. I actually have an FM3 I'm about to say. Let me just check in on all these other things because I'm gonna give you a multi-tiered answer here. You're the best, Mel. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, okay. All right. We've gone into effects. All right. Let me talk a little bit about the music education front. So, what I'm trying to do, I'm allergic to the cage system, and I'm going to tell you why. But I'm also in the midst of this pentatonic course, and this has a lot to do with the music theory in college. I'm going to tie these together, and this is going to be beneficial for anybody who wants to be a better musician and guitar player. So, bear with me. So the deal, one of the things about the cage system is the concept. If I took this C form and this A form and this G form and this E form and this D form and that C form, that's what the cage is about. It allows you to toggle between chord shapes. I'm taking the C shape to play a C major chord. I'm playing an A shape, play a C major chord. I'm playing a G shape, and gosh darn it, I'll come back to that in a minute. That's that G shape to play this C chord. That's that E shape played as a bar chord, and then that's the D shape to play. So those are all different C's. Sorry, I keep playing. To play that chord shape. Now, here's the deal. If you went into a college music class and you started trying to show them your perception of what cage is about in terms of music theory, they would laugh you out of the class. It's just like, guitar player. Because if you try and do the math, C-A-G-E-D, music, C-D-E-F-G-A-B, 7 notes divided by C-A-G-E-D, 5, the math's not very good. But the real reasons that caged is so flawed is, first of all, have you ever played this chord? Or sorry, I'm supposed to be playing it at C. So this chord shape, have you ever played this as a bar chord? No. Now, the thing is that this chord is the part of this chord right here. But the point being is that these chords generally end up being these strange little, this little bit of business and there, and then you've got this. I mean, besides that, Uh, Besides that, when was the last time you played that chord anywhere other than there? It's just like it kind of the idea of being able to go from chord shape to soloing and seeing how to connect the shapes. Conceptually, it's great, except for the fact that if you're wanting to connect the major pentatonic and major chords, there is a giant glaring problem that caged sets people up for a massive amount of failure. The major scale in the key of G, the triad chords, if we took G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and harmonized this, as Mr. Vibe would describe as in chord scales, you would have a G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, and G major. You would have 3 locations you play a major chord. So the whole concept of caged, as it relates to soloing with the pentatonics, like, hey, I got the C major chord, and so I'm going to be able to kind of go, all right. Sorry. All right, I got it. So basically what you're doing is you're playing pattern number. You're playing out of basically pattern, minor pentatonic pattern number 5. And then when we go up to this one, so we're going to go here. Then we're at pattern number 1. And then we go to here. All right, and then we go to here. We're now. So it fits in there. My apologies on kind of piecing that together. But the challenge is this: there are 3 locations in every key that you can play the major chord. So how are you supposed to know which one of those you play over? You play the minor pentatonic or the major pentatonic with, and what do you play over the other 2? I don't know. Because it's a really flawed system. Now, the concept of being able to go, hey, being able to work around a shape and be able to and riff around that shape, especially around your tonic chord. Let's say I'm in the key of A major. Now, if I think about that A major chord as an A major chord, and not just as another kind of caged component, just go, hey, that's a major chord. That means it's a bunch of 1s, 3s, and 5s. So 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. I can think of that the entire thing. Now, the deal is, if I think about this chord right here, one of the other things I'm going to think about is that inversion right there. So instead of, and this is slightly cagey, except for the fact that I'm thinking about this not just on this string set, but what about on this string set? Or what about on this string set? Or any one of the string sets? So that now I have the ability to play inversions off of any of those things. That is to say, let me do this for the key of D. So that's D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A major, B minor, C sharp diminished, and D major. Now I'm playing it in first inversion. Sorry. Now I'm playing it in second inversion. So what I did, root position, first inversion, second inversion. But now I have 7 chords to fit each one of the starting notes of the major scale in turn, if that's my 1. So if I'm going to play in D major, all right, so I can go, basically, old school pentatonic would go, okay, well, if I'm in D, I can go, well, that's going to be functioning as the 1, and there's going to be my 6. So now I'm kind of thinking about how things are actually functioning. There's my 1, 3, 5. And so old school pentatonic people would go, all right, if I'm playing D major, I'm going to go step and a half down to B. And play pattern number 1 of the minor pentatonic there. And I'd go up a step and a half. And play pattern number 2. And then a whole 7 play pattern number 3. And so you're just connecting them together. Now the deal is, that allows me to kind of go, hey, as it relates to the root chord there, D. So I can think about a bunch of D, F sharps, and A's anywhere, and I can begin to go, hey, you know what? And play off of those triads like that. And I can do it off of any string set. And I can incorporate it. And I can begin to see how those are going to overlay the pentatonic. Because the ability to connect a chord in the pentatonic is a help. However, if I'm in the key of D major, I also have a G major chord and an A major chord. So if I only see the connection between that root major chord and the pentatonic, I'm kind of cooked. But if I can go, all right, I'm in the key of D. I can use the notes of the major scale. Sorry, D, which are going to be D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. And I can play that anywhere. D, E, F sharp, G, A. I can just go D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. I don't have to use a finger, but the point being is that point. Sorry. Now I'm playing D major pentatonic, which is the 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Starting from D, and I can doesn't matter which one of these chords in that key. And you can mix in the notes of the major scale because we're not just thinking about pentatonic. But the deal is now that I actually know which of these three chords, the D, I'm going to be playing the major pentatonic around. And I also know that this guy is going to be functioning as my 4 and my 5. Which means I can play the Lydian mode off of its root, or the Lydian fingering, or the mixed Lydian fingering. Now what we've done is we've gone, all right, we're seeing this as my 1, 4, and my 5. Which means that if I want to be able to play a scale off the root of the chord, now I'm not in the key of G Lydian or A mixed Lydian as I'm playing G Lydian or A mixed Lydian, but I am in the overarching tonality of D major and its relative chords. And when we're playing the 4 chord, we're playing the 1, 3, and 5 of the 4 mode, Lydian, and we're at the 5 chord, playing 1, 3, and 5 of the 5 mode. So that allows us to, again, if the goal is to be able to play a chord, and be able to play solo off that shape, that's going to be helped. Now, the next part of this is being able to kind of identify, and admittedly, I'm not as good yet at mapping this with the major pentatonic as I am with the minor pentatonic. So I'm going to go to E minor, and just like E minor, or just like D major, or any of these keys, there are actually 3 minor chords relative to the key of E minor. That's the 6, that's at the 2, and that's at the 3. So that's my 6 chord, 2 chord, and 3 chord. And this one is the tonal center. So at that E minor chord, I'm going to play E minor pentatonic. And the reason we chose that one, we can hear that's the point of resolution. The idea is you just kind of play through the chords until you get to the chord. It sounds like that's where things want to end / resolve. Now, with that said, that E minor chord is made up of a bunch of E's, G's, and B's. E, B, and there's our G, which is really E, G, B, 1, 5, 3, 5, which is 3 of the 5 notes of E minor pentatonic. So that means if we learn to think about E, G, A, B, D, E, we can start that. I don't know, E, G, A, B, D, E. All right, E, D, B, A, B, D, E, so on and so forth. You begin to place this together, and you're like, okay, I can see how these things fit together. That is to say, E minor pentatonic, E, G, A, B, D, E. Second note, G, A, B, D, E, G. Third note, A, B, D, E, G, A. Fourth note, B, D, E, G, A, B. Fifth note, D, E, G, A, B, D. And then we're back to the beginning, E, G, A, B, D, E. It's literally just taking E, G, A, B, D, E and cycling through, starting off each one of those. So if you see that happening in the background as you're going, so we've got this chord right here. I would overlay that over pattern number 4. And guess what? There's the E. We go to that guy. That's pattern number 3. And that's back to pattern number 4, where I'm at for this one. So now what we've done is we've just been able to, just by connecting the different patterns of pentatonic, knowing where we are, but it's done not by kind of going, I don't know, I'm doing this Cage thing where I'm, and the other problem with Cage is that of this chord, this C major and this C major and this C major, literally you're only trained to think about those 4 strings. Well, we got 6 strings here. I paid for 6 strings. I want to use them all. So the point being is having a strategy of looking at things diatonically is really important. And what's great about going to a collegiate level theory class is you're going to get all of that away from guitar. So instead of going, hey, you know, I know how to play a major chord, but I don't necessarily know that this chord is really a bunch of A, C sharps, and E's. And the voicing of this chord, A, E, C sharp, E, and A, gives us a chord voicing. This 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. And this is 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. So we know the notes of a G major triad or G, B, D. And we know notes of an A major triad or A, C sharp, and E. And we know the notes of a B major triad or B, D, F sharp, C, E, G, D, F sharp, A. And this is 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. This is going to be G, D, G, B, D, G. A, E, A, C sharp, E, A. B, F sharp, B, D, D sharp, F sharp, B, and I might have said B, D, F sharp, but it should be B, D sharp, F sharp. That's going to be C, E, G, C, G, C, E, G, C, and D, A, F sharp, sorry, D, F sharp, sorry, D, A, D, F sharp, A, D, because it's really just 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1 over and over. So if I know what 1, 3, and 5 are, then 1 is going to be the G. The 5 is going to be the D, and the 3 is going to be the B. So that's a bunch of G's, 2 B's, and 1 D. Sorry, I said that wrong. 3 G's, 1 B, and 2 D's. And this one is going to be 3 A's, 1 C sharp, and 2 E's. And this one is going to be 3 B's, 1 D sharp, and 2 F sharps. And this one's going to be 3 C's and 2 G's. And, sorry, I should go to the 3 first. 3 C's, 1 E, and 2 G's, because they're all the same thing. All you have to do is know what the formula is, and then you can put in the note names. The point being is the music theory class is going to show you C, E, G, D, F, A, E, G, B, F, A, C, G, B, D, A, C, E, B, D, F, C, E, G, and you're going to understand what I call the triad note groups. That is basically starting at C, C, D, E, F, G, C, E, G, D, E, F, G, A, D, F, A, E, G, B, F, C, G, B, D, A, C, B, D, F, C, E, G, D, F, A, so on and so forth. C, E, G, D, F, A, E, G, B, F, A, C, G, B, D, A, C, E, B, D, F, C, E, G. If you understand chord voicings, 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, G, B, D is a G major triad, then that's G, D, G, B, D, G. And wait for it, if this is G, D, G, B, D, G, then I guess it's going to be G, D, G, B flat, D, G. And all of a sudden, we're able to take our understanding of triads and theory and bring it over the guitar. The biggest problem for most musicians taking a college theory class, who play guitar, I should say, guitar players, is that it's not taught in such a way that you're shown, because it's not the goal of the classes, how to bring that information back onto the guitar. But what you are shown is the underlying principles that unite all instruments together. And the problem with something like Caged, and while I go on my little micro rant there, is that it is a painfully guitar-centric thing that's based around the shapes. But the problem is you're literally getting 1/3 of the information. Again, based on the triads for the major scale, there are 3 spots you can play a major chord. So if you know how to line up the minor pentatonic around one of them, what do you do over the other 2 chords? You're like, I don't know. And more importantly, it sets up guitar players to make mistakes 2/3 of the time, because they start playing the wrong pentatonic over the other 2 chords, and they don't know why they're doing it wrong. And the idea is kind of like, how is it functioning? Which one of these is the root? Which am I laying the pentatonic over? And then kind of how do I map the other patterns up and down the neck? Now, I'm a big fan of like, hey, pentatonic patterns, map them up and down the neck. However, once we know, for example, we're in the key of E minor, every one of these patterns is going to incorporate E, G, A, B, D, E, because there's a bunch of 1s, flat 3s, 4s, 5s, flat 7, and 1. It doesn't matter what key you're in. Once you understand how things are working, you understand how they're working, and it's not tethered to some shape. And the one that to me is the biggest difference, like, first of all, when was the last time you played that shape in a chord progression? Never. So the idea is like, so it doesn't practically line up to how we actually play either. Now it is convenient to be able to go, hey, this guy, being able to go, hey, how can I fly in the major pentatonic as it works with this chord at root position? That is Sorry, there's my 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Okay. Fine. I can think about it. I got it. And I can also think about it as this pentatonic shape, which we have a tendency to think about it as, if we're in the key of C major, we think about playing the minor pentatonic a step and a half down. We would still be inclined to think about that as pentatonic shape number 1, and this would be pentatonic shape number 5. So my big takeaway, so I play this 5th string root, major bar chord, I'm going to overlay pentatonic shape number 5 over the top of it. But what happens when I play the other chords in that key? I'm like, if all we learn to think is like, as I play that particular major shape, and all I go is kind of, over here I would play, and that's great, but that's not the pentatonic that you're going to play over the tonic of this thing, and it means you're not playing what you intend to. That is to say, when we're playing in, again, E minor, if I go to this chord, I can do that. That is to say, I was going from E minor pentatonic, A minor pentatonic, and then B minor pentatonic. But generally speaking, you're going to be playing E minor pentatonic over the whole thing. So you just kind of need to figure out how to map E minor pentatonic up and down the neck. and then in turn see how chords relate to that. Life will be much, 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 much better. Rant over. Okay, let's see here. AM4. I have not yet checked out the AM4, but all the fractal stuff, just the tones are great. And yes, they are flippin' amazing. Fractal and quad QC, for those of you who don't speak acronyms, QC effects is as awesome as they are. I often see pedal boards that have fractal and or quad cortex pedals like Strymon, Big Sky, and Timeline. Why would they do that if the modelers are so good? That's a great question. So the thing is that right now, the way this amp is wired, this pedal is not in the loop. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to put that in the loop right now. But the funny thing is this. Yeah, I will. Give me a moment. No, it's going to mess up my whole little stereo flow. So the deal is that little pedal has one particular vibe that I love, where the Strymon pedals have their own particular vibe. It's a great question. Why, if all these things are so good, why can't you just choose one? Or why would you use multiple? So, first of all, the Universal Audio pedals have very specific algorithms, frequently of very famous studio reverbs. And so, amongst other things. But the point being is, if you're wanting that classic Lexicon 224 reverb, the Universal Audio algorithm of it is beautiful. Great reason to have that pedal. UA Golden. Let's say you love the Plex delay. Reverber's not on, that's just pure delay. Let me kill my mic. Great sounding delay. That is unique to that family. So there'll be particular, quote unquote, algorithms to each one of these that you're like, oh, that really speaks to me. Separate from that, there's a workflow. Let's say, my good old, I think you mentioned the timeline. The great thing about the eventide, time factor, not the timeline. So the time factor was great about it. It's got knobs. Go figure. You know, unfortunately, at a certain point on a dark stage, a menu, and you're sweating, so the glasses are potentially fogging up, and you're trying to deep edit a menu. You're like, screw that. I can actually know what each one of these knobs does. And if I want to change the mix, the global mix, very smart of them. Guess what? It's right there. Upper left-hand knob, I can be in the dark and like feel over there like, oh, I just want to bring that up or down a little bit. And you have the ability to do that. So the idea of the ease of use, whether it's in the studio, using a graphical user interface, a GUI, the Strymon, the Fractal editor is great. I generally speaking, when I have the opportunity to be able to use a computer editor, that's my preference. It just allows me to keep stuff back in the rack, and I don't have to be digging around, poking around, pushing little buttons on little baby screens. It allows me able to have that in front of me, and my workflow works around the computer. That's just me. It either means I'm old school or new school or some weird combination of the two. But the point being is that workflow is another reason. It's like, you know what? It's just easy to do what I need to do. This guy, it's easy to do what I need to do, and it has a particular vibe that when I turn it on, it does a better spring reverb than the Fractal. It just does. Brian Wampler knows a thing or two about a thing or two. This pedal is flipping great. And so it's just like when I want Fender style vintage spring reverb that I can adjust the parameters on, that's my go-to. So it's a great question. And so the great thing about the Fractal stuff is it's highly editable. However, the other thing is that there is a certain, just a natural character. There's something about, again, I mentioned earlier, the Cooper Time Cube. There's something about that delay that just really speaks to me, that I love that sound. John Petrucci, the 2290 has made its way back into his rack. It's not like he's not using the Fractal stuff, but there's something about the sound of that circuit and the way that delay is voiced that does a particular thing that's gorgeous. It's the equivalent of, I've got a Strat, but gosh darn it, yes, I love the bridge position of my Telecaster, but, and this I'll demonstrate in real time. Hang on a second. Give me a moment. I'll be back in half a second, reaching for a guitar. One of my favorite things about a Telecaster that a lot of people might miss is that, and I certainly missed it for a bunch of years. I did not initially have the love and respect that I do now for Telecasters, but that's changed. Come on, give me a little bit more to work with. By the way, I always there's a handle over here on the side of my rack here that I put my cables through that makes it so they're taut, so that if I happen to trip on a cable somewhere in the room, it doesn't take the head with me. The worst case thing that will potentially happen is that I take out a cable, which is much better. So the thing is, the neck position of this guitar, when you hear it, I'm going to mute my, hopefully remember to turn it back on. I haven't screwed that up yet. I'm going to bring the room volume up a little. This guitar is a little quiet. Now, with that particular delay, so let me turn that off and turn just a little bit of reverb on. Point being is that I wouldn't have necessarily expected that a guitar that can be kind of so twangy in the bridge, it sounds so pretty. as I destroy Wind Cries Mary. But it's got a really great neck pickup tone. This is basically the reissue of a Broadcaster, which was the very first two pickup Telecaster T-style, dare I say, guitar. They called it the Broadcaster. They got sued, and they had to change the name. Gretsch had a Broadcaster, and then Fender ended up buying Gretsch, and they got to be able to use the Broadcaster name again on the reissue. Different conversation. All right. Let's see here. Good. I just bought some String Joy sets. So I have not used String Joy. So a really, really, really dear friend of mine of many years is involved with that company, or was involved as artist relations guy named Alex Oxier. And if he's involved with them, they will be great. But I do not have any personal experience with String Joy. I am a Dunlop string endorser, and I love the Dunlop strings. So one of the things about endorsing gear is it is generally frowned upon when one particular endorser takes care of you and provides gear for you to wander around and flirt with other manufacturers, unless at a certain point you find that gear is not doing what you need. You kind of go, maybe I need to find another company to work with. And when I was an Ibanez endorser and I was getting ready to move over to Gibson, as I'm playing a Fender, but these days the guitar thing's loosened up a little bit. You can be an endorser, but you don't want to be showing up in somebody else's catalog or on their website. But the idea is that the Gibson people understand that you're going to play a Strat in Italian. Funny thing is, Gibson owns Mesa Boogie, and in any videos that are shared on their socials, they're fine with me using other instruments because they know other people are going to do that through a Mesa Boogie. But the String Joy stuff, I'm sure, is great. And honestly, many of the strings that are out there are manufactured by Diodario, so you're getting Diodario strings anyway. The Dunlop strings aren't. But strings generally these days are really, really, really good. And if they make you happy, that's what counts. Way to go. All right, good. I'm an ear guy as well. 6 years of worship performances. Oh, in-ear guy as well. They go, I ordered the custom model. So, and that's, that is a thing that's a level of comfort that's super, super valuable. So you don't have these things on top of your head. And once you kind of get used to the in-ear experience, it's a little less cumbersome. Again, when you're in the studio, I think there's a subconscious fear that if I start moving too much, I can catch the cable and somehow the headphones are going to come off mid-performance. It is this kind of, it's a leash, if you will. What's going on, Rick? Great to see you, my friend. Every season has its pros and its cons, but we look forward to the upsizing season, my friend. Great to see you. It's literally telling you can search for a tab on the search bar. Thanks, Mel. I just saw that as I was searching. What's funny on this end, the screen you tried to share. I know. Thank you very much. I'm downsizing as well. Multiple guitars and effects on my Reverb site. Les Paul Custom Shop. PRS Special Hollow Body. Nice. Home built red Strat with modern trem. Way to go. I am here. Oh, good. So, what's going on? All right. So, sure. So, I'm gonna see if I can turn this into a little bit of a talking point. So the question is, can I play a 1-4-5 improv? So the thing about traditionally when people, first of all, there are two main types of 1-4-5s that somebody would think of. Now, if somebody says, hey, can you play a 1-4-5? Most of the time, I'm going to think they're asking me to play a 1, 4, and a 5. That is off these three notes, in this particular case, in the key of A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. The 1 would be A, the 4 would be D, and the 5 would be E. And in that key, I would play an A major 7, a D major 7, and an E dominant 7. However, when people say, hey, let's do a 1-4-5 in A, they usually mean I play an A dominant 7 and a D dominant 7 and an E dominant 7. And really what that means is if you took the key of G major and you went up to its 5th chord, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you would be taking the chord that's based on the major scale, started off of its 5th note, which is going to be D, and we would be taking the G major scale from its D note and going the notes of G major starting from D. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. That is the D mixed Lydian scale. And if I took its 1st, 3rd, and 5th notes, that's where that 5 chord comes from. And if I not only took its 1st, 3rd, and 5th notes, but if I took its 7th note in the 2nd octave, we end up with a dominant 7 chord compared to the major 7 that you would have there. That's minor 7, that's major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7, therefore the 5. So when people talk about a 1-4-5, they quite often really mean a 5-5-5 that, if you look at the relationship of the bass notes, is really a moving dominant chord progression. So it's actually toggling between A mixed Lydian, C mixed Lydian, sorry, D mixed Lydian, and E mixed Lydian. But because, well, I should say these chords would be outlining the 5 chord, that'd be A mixed Lydian, the 5 chord, there would be D mixed Lydian, and the 5 chord, there would be E mixed Lydian. But one of these chords, the A, is the tonal center, which means it's really changing modes. Here we play A mixed Lydian. That chord is a 5-4-3-2, which means that we're going to go. We're going to be playing A Dorian. That's a little hot there, I apologize. And over this guy, E is the 5 chord, 5-4-3-2-1. That means A is my 1. So over that chord, I'm going to play A major, A Dorian, A mixed Lydian, A major. So with that said, I've still got my mic on. I'm going to switch guitars here because I want a little bit more nuance. So hang on. Let me do this. And in a moment, one of the other things I'm going to do is I will play the literal interpretation of a 1-4-5. Sorry, so that would be literally. All right, so let me demonstrate chordally kind of the differences sonically. So I'm going to do kind of a 1-4-5 so we would think of more associated with the blues. I'm going to mute my mic real quick. Now the same idea 1-4-5, but associated with the chords of A major, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. All right, so from the framework of that, now I'm going to kind of riff and solo a little bit, initially with a clean tone. Starting with the kind of the bluesier 1-4-5, where I'm outlining A7, D7, and E7 versus A major 7, D major 7, and E dominant 7. So again, kind of the more traditional blues, quote unquote, in 1-4-5, which really isn't a 1-4-5. Now, the interesting thing about that is, like, I really wanted to play a chord, add some of the other chord, in the key. So I'm going to do that, but still focusing around the 1-4 and the 5, but adding some other decorative chords. Okay, not perfect, but kind of a really kind of a fun little musical exercise. Um, Usually, I wouldn't do those two back to back, which is what's kind of really neat. They're very different. Again, kind of textures. So there's my really legitimately, if you're thinking about the chords based on a particular key, your one chord and your four chord and your five chord would be based off of the first, fourth, and fifth degrees of that mode, where the 1-4-5 of a blues is kind of errantly describing 1-4-5. It's not really a 1-4-5, but if I took the key of A major and I took its first note A and its fourth note D and its fifth note E, and I took the chord that I could only play over E and played it over A, D, and E, that's kind of what, when you say, hey, play a 1-4-5, that's what most people would think of when that's happening. However, that's one of the common things in guitar speak. It's not really a 1-4-5. However, that is like, from the five, means everybody's gonna, it's like, hey, let's play blues in A, or let's do a 1-4-5. Most people would take that to mean literally a blues 1-4-5, which really isn't a 1-4-5. Nuance aside, what's neat is the switching between the two kind of makes you really think very differently. Versus sorry, I didn't hit a dominant 7 there. There we go. The other thing I can do is, because it's when I'm doing this, I can outline those chord changes through the notes I play, which is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to mute myself because, again, it's probably a little hot coming through the vocal mic there. So I'm going to be outlining a blues 1-4-5, and in theory, if I play it right, you'll hear me outlining which one of the chords I'm playing over. Lots of food for thought there. So thanks for that. That was different. And it's also a little bit different, just kind of, as you kind of implied. Well, what happens when you freeform it? That's to say, as opposed to having kind of set chord, rhythm, and whatnot, improv it. So hopefully that, first of all, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Oh, there we go. Oh boy, that's tiny up there. Hang on, come on back here. There we go. Cool. Thanks. All right, Miguel, with great pleasure. Hope that was good. Again, we're kind of doing some of the same thing here, so that's literally what I've been doing. Glad I could be of service. Didn't well, the telecast has begun. Come on, love that. I know where that was back in the telecast. All right, just because someone teaches, hold on, something with authority doesn't mean they necessarily mean it's accurate or true. Ouch. All right, so Mel's comment. I was going to suggest that you talk to just because someone teaches it with authority doesn't mean that it's accurate or true. So, boy, the short version of that is there's a lot of truth and wisdom to that. So you got to watch out for false musical prophets. Just because, and I could say Fender amps are the best high gain amplifier in the world. Nothing can touch them for metal. And if I said it with enough passion and belief, and I put that up there on a video, and didn't put any playing out there, somebody would believe me. They're great amplifiers, but they are not the best high gain amplifier for metal in the world. But if you say it with enough belief, somebody's gonna do that. So the guy who overpaid $17 for the Badlander. So hang on, let's back up a step. Hold on. So, let me see if I can do something to make you feel better. That's really okay. Well, there you go. So, still okay. So what you got? So this is first of all, whoever's still watching here, thanks for watching. We're now in our second hour, like literally 2 hours plus, which is just crazy. My 11 o'clock student is off playing with Marty Schwartz at Gibson Garage in Nashville right now, or some point over the course of the day. So for those of you that hung out for the long ride, I appreciate that a lot. So first of all, and I will be jumping in just a moment, but let me just kind of finish up this thing. So, okay, so a little bit earlier, for any of you who missed this, we were talking about going through and pricing and seeing what market value was. One of the things that is important as we were comparing these different amps, and one of the things we talked about was the particular amp here that was the 1750 compared to these other amps that were less expensive, is we can have excellent, but one of the other things is that all of these amps this one says it's mint 2020, 2022, and then quote unquote your amp, which important to this conversation, exactly 1 month old. Okay, never gig, blah 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 blah. All right, so here's the deal. Let me get to the right window here. So for my two, come on. So for the two Badlander 100 heads that are behind me, one of which I bought used. Bought it from Guitar Center. Actually got it what I felt was a really fair price. I think I had to repair the light on the amplifier. Now, there's more to this. At the point that the light bulb has gone out, that means that amp has been on a fair amount. At some point sooner than later, I'm going to have to replace the tubes. It's not cheap. You got a like new amplifier that is literally like new. So I'm saying this because I'm looking for the silver lining here and a nuance here to price differentiation. And first of all, going out and buying a set of tubes, you're easily going, okay, hang on. Let me just do a little bit of research here. I've proved that I'm incapable of switching tabs properly here. But let's see if I can get on here and go to reverb. And let's get to Mesa. I haven't switched windows here yet. Mesa 6L6. Oh, no, these are EL34s. So let's see what a quad of EL34 is going to be. Okay, so there we go. So switching back to this window here. There we go. So your quad of EL34s, these are matched pairs. It's going to be $200. So now all of a sudden, that investment that you made in a newer amplifier. Again, I'm providing a little bit of a silver lining. We both learned something here because I was like, what are the odds that I would find your amp on reverb? I'm just like, that was what I was like, okay, hang on, let's find a silver lining. So again, the thing is that the used Badlander I bought one new through my friends at Boogie as an artist. So yeah, I get artist pricing on it, which I can't go into. But the other one I bought used, and when I bought the second one, I purposely bought artist pricing on that because I wanted to buy, wait for it, a new amplifier, or in your case, a like new amplifier. And there is value in having an amplifier that the tubes are new. It hasn't been in some bar fight having beer potentially spilled on it that maybe they cleared off on all of that. So I'm not trying to scare people. I'm not being a total kiss ass here. What I'm trying to say is like, look, there are times that we will purposely pay a little bit more to get something that is pristine. And that has value. The chances of that happening are just... however, there you have it. So in any case, there you have it. Holy cow. Okay. All right. What's going on, Charles? What's happening? Great to see you. V's. Yes. Okay. 80s prototype, 80s style here, and a prototype of the new Synergy Mark Series module. I bet that sounds great. And I bet it's nice and loud. A pleasure to see you. Thanks for stopping in. Yes, we got a little rectification going on here. We like it loud. So awesome. Thanks. So for the conversation we're having with Riley here, the long version of it is, and in a moment I do actually need to get going to Lesson World. We're 2 hours and 42 minutes into this. I love you guys, but you knew that. Is that theory away from the instrument allows us to have what I call portable theory. One of my students was taught music by their grandfather, and the grandfather said this thing to them that just blew my mind. They said once they knew where the notes were, they could play any instrument. I just went, wait a second. What does that mean? So I will do my best to translate that into a musical example, switching over to that channel and this, and I will take... No, I'm going to do this here. So it means that basically if I know I'm in the key of A major, which is not necessarily the most friendly key, but if I go A, actually use G, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, I can then go, all right, if I take G on the string, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and B on the string, go B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, and D on the string and go D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, D, I now have G, B, D, A, C, E, B, D, F sharp, C, E, G, D, F sharp, A, E, G, B, F sharp, A, C, G, B, D. That is to say my knowledge of the G major scale and harmonizing it G, B, D, A, C, E, B, D, F sharp, C, E, G, D, F sharp, A, E, G, B, F sharp, A, C, G, B, D means that I now can play at least these basic triads. If I want to go 1, 4, 5, I can do that. And if I want to move to the key of, once I understand kind of my ability to go, hey, that's a major triad, and that's G, and that's going to be C and D. Well, what if I want to play a major triad at G, B flat, and C? Well, that's going to be 1, 4, 5 for the key of F. So I took what I learned shape-wise at G, C, and D, and transposed it to F, B flat, and C. And then I said, well, wait a minute. Okay, well, then we can kind of take the same concept, and now I'm going to take, I'm going to be in the key of D, all right? So D is my 1, and I'm playing a first inversion triad. So the key of D major, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. And the notes of a D major triad would be taking the D, F sharp, and A of that D, E, F sharp, G, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, D, F sharp, A. And if instead of playing D, F sharp, A, I went F sharp, A, D, I'm playing that D major in first inversion. And there's D major, E minor, F sharp minor, so on and so forth. So I'm taking the triads now for the key of D major. But I literally can just go, all right, well, if D's my 1, what's my 4 going to be? I guess it's going to be my G. And A is going to be my 5. So now I know how to do 1, 4, 5 in G, 1, 4, 5 in a F, and a D. Sorry. And then the idea is that as much as that was a basic outworking of that, the knowledge of the note names and be able to combine them together is how we get there. Now let's just say I moved to the key of G and I wanted to actually take the 1, the 4, and the 5, and so my 1 chord is going to be G, B, D, and I'm going to add the F sharp, the natural 7. I'm going to take the 4 chord, which is going to be C, E, G, and I'm going to add the natural 7, which is going to be B. The 5 chord is going to be D, D major, and that's going to be D, F sharp, A, and I'm going to add the flat 7, which is going to be a C. And now if I know this is 1, 3, 5, 7, I can take the 1 and move it down an octave, because that's G and that's G there. I'm going to take that F sharp, instead of playing it there, I'm going to play it there, so instead of going, I can go, because it was my knowledge of the notes, and like, this is just a G, B, D, F sharp. This is a G, F sharp, B, D, which is a different voicing for this, but what's neat about it is we move it around, we now have arguably a better sounding chord, and this is one of the interesting things that I'm trying to unpack in the pentatonic course. I forgot to mention this about the problem with the cage system before on my rant. C shape, A shape, G shape, D shape. Hence, C shape, A shape, G shape, E shape, D shape. Back to the C shape. C, A, G, C, Fibonacci. C, A, G, E, D. The thing about this is, if you think about the C shape, and you think about the A shape, and you think about the G shape and the E shape, first of all, we'll pretty much never play this shape off the low E string. So there's that one shape there, right? And then there's that one shape there. Those are pretty much the main shapes that we based our chords around, kind of that root and fifth, or at least that root on the 6th string and the root on the 5th string with the 1st finger. That's kind of how we play guitar. All of our chords are based around that 1st finger playing the root on the 6th or 5th string. And if we're not, we are more frequently than not just playing an inversion of that chord shape right there. But aside from that, pretty much everything we're doing, the lowest note in the chord, is either on the 6th string or the 5th string, and we're playing quite frequently the 1 and the 5, or in this case, 1, 7, 3, 5. 1 flat 7 flat 3 5, 1 flat 7 flat 3 5, 1 7 3 5, 1 flat 7 3 5, 1 flat 7 flat 3 5, 1 flat 7 flat 3 flat 5, 1 7 3 5. But the point being is, the cage system has us although the concept of playing chords and scales and being able to move between the two has a lot of merits, and being able to see different chord shapes up and down the neck is hugely important. The problem is it's fixated on one of the 3 spots that you can play the major chords. If I wanted to be in the key of G major, I need to actually be aware of what's going on with my G major chord, my C major chord, and my D major chord. And I know this because away from music, I know this. And cages is very kind of like, it boxes you in into this really narrow way of looking at the neck. But if I know, hey, in the key of G, if I kind of build the triads, just going G, A, B, B, C, D, D, E, F sharp, and start just kind of motoring through here and go, hey, I got 3 major shapes there, or I have my information. Go, hey, in the key of G, I can play G major, C major, and D major. Then what I do, then I can go, hey, there's my G major through its various inversions. Here's my C major through its different inversions. And here is my D major through its different inversions. That is a much more functional way of being able to go, hey, look, I want to be able to motor my way up and down the neck. And yes, it's valuable to be able to see where the chords are in relationship to the scale, but there's only going to be one place where we're going to play the minor pentatonic. But there's 3 places, or the major pentatonic, and it's 5 different patterns, but there's 3 different places we're going to play the major chords or the minor chords. So we better have a more overarching way to see this, which is to say, hey, if I'm in the key of G major, I can play the 1 chord, 4 chord, and 5 chord are all major chords. If I'm going to be playing this is my tonal center, I'm going to be playing G major pentatonic, which is basically 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1, and then. And over that, we can overlay the different chords. There's my 1 chord, there's my 4 chord, and my 5 chord, all in one location. And there now what we've done is said, hey, I'm playing this, what is commonly referred to as the major pentatonic, which again is 1, 2, 3. If I take the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, I'm leaving out the 4 and the 7, which, by the way, if I play major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Lydian, 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7, and mixed Lydian, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, the natural 4 and the natural 7 of major, and the sharp 4 and the natural 7 of Lydian, and the natural 4 and the flat 7 of mixed Lydian are the things that differentiate those 3 different modes you can play over a major chord. Well, guess what? The major pentatonic leaves those out. So I can be just kind of going, hey, I don't care whether it's a 1 chord or a 4 chord or a 5 chord. I can now know where I am, and if the 1 chord is my tonal center, sorry, I'm a little hot there. So I didn't mean to play the 4. I'm just going to play the 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Also known as pattern number 2 of the minor pentatonic, but we're playing the major pentatonic, which again is pattern number 2, what we would normally associate with the minor pentatonic. But then we can play any one of the other chords, and so now at that location, we just know that they're all going to sit around this major pentatonic scale. So now what we've done is we've tethered the chords to the scale shape as opposed to the scale shape to the chords. Now that is a kind of a arguably, it takes a little bit more firing power to do that, but it means that we are actually going, hey, there's 3 places I can play the major chord. How does my root scale relate to all of that? And just go, okay, I can play chords around that. And once I kind of know how those chords fit together, so I'm the, and so basically I'm playing G major, root position, first inversion, second inversion, C major, second inversion, root position, first inversion, D major, first inversion, second inversion, root position. So I can see how to play that G major, root position, that C major, second inversion, that D major in first inversion. That little shape there, those shapes there allow me to be in that range there, and I know how that relates to this. Now let's just say, for example, I'm going to take it up, I'm playing it over C Lydian. There's my, all right, so C would be my 4 chord. My 5 chord is going to be D. So I'm going to play that chord right there. So basically I have my C right there, and then my D, and then my G chord is going to be there. So we just kind of learned to do the same thing. All right, there's my 4 chord, there's my 5 chord, there's my 1 chord. But I'm going to be playing around the 4 as my tonal center. Sorry, there's my tonic chord. Now I'm going to go to, there's my 1 chord, there's my 5 chord, back to my 4 chord. All right, so the point being is you just learn how to walk that stuff around and relate the chord to that. Same thing as I'm playing it at mixed Lydian. There's my 5 chord. There is going to be my 1 chord, and there is going to, so is my 4 chord. I'm looking for C major. Where's a C major handy to here? Because I'm going to have to play that C major there. So there's my 5, 4, and 1. But now we've mapped out the 3 different places we can play the major pentatonic natively over the 1, the major, over the 4, the Lydian, over the 5, the mixed Lydian. Now we've mapped out those triads. Once we've done that one time, down here where I'm playing the major pentatonic over G major, there's my 1 chord, there's my 4 chord, there's my 5 chord. We can play it over Lydian. There's my 4 chord, my tonic chord. I should say, yeah, let me do it. There's my 4 chord, there's my 5 chord, and there's my 1 chord. And we can play it over the mixed Lydian. There's my 5 chord, and then there's my 1 chord, and there's my 4 chord. That allows me to, again, be able to toggle between those chords and see how the major pentatonic overlays. All right, I'm getting close on time, so let me just kind of catch the last of this. Shredwood, if I didn't say hello, I'm saying hello now. Hope your shows are going great, by the way. With pleasure, Riley. Your desire to learn is appreciated greatly. There's also a whole class on how to use MIDI. Yes, unequivocally. What's going on, Mechanic Jams? How you doing, my man? Love Fractal. And so the fractal stuff is great, right? Can't go wrong with it. And awesome. All right. For the recording arts class, they have a good studio, but we would also take field trips in some nicer studios. Yes. Thank you. Well, I technically don't have a Dean in the frame here, but I do have a Dean. So I and my guitar are complimented. So thank you. I don't mean to be persnickety, but there we have it. So in any case, hey, welcome aboard. 2 minutes. Eric, with great pleasure. Thanks for hanging out. Where did you get that cool pedal shirt? I think I got this. I am having a little bit of an issue with what has used to be my favorite t-shirt company. I think they've changed hands and they're working out some printing and design stuff where my next batch of t-shirts have come in crooked. I'm now on my 3rd order. So once I am sure that they can get it right, I will be happy to share the name of this because I know I can tell you exactly where it is. It's called TeePublic, actually. And so they've been really good about fulfilling it, but the t-shirts came in crooked. And so in any case, I love the shirt, so thank you. Right, Filthy Tone, the FT1, come on. So thank you. So I got it, teepublic.com. And the shirt you want to buy these days, and it's kind of like it's black, but it is a what in the world is that? There we go. This is what I'm looking for. Hold on. Where is my... Oh, that's weird. Mail. There we go. Hang on a second. I'll be able to tell you exactly which shirt just one second. There are a couple of different types of shirts they've got. There we go. Hang on just one second. All right. Just one second. I'm about to be out of time here, but I want to give you your answer. Because the type of shirt that is the one that you probably want, they have a number of different fabrics that are available. And come on. Sorry, this is taking a minute, but gosh darn it, our public support here is important. Let's see if I can get to the right one here. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, there we go. You are looking for the extra soft style. There it is. It's called extra soft. And now the thing about the extra soft is it's actually has a little tiny bit of gray fabric in it, but it essentially looks black. And they're really cool. And so the shirts were crooked. They're getting it right. They're sending them for free. And I've got a ton of their shirts. So, and they've been really cool to deal with. They just kind of made some mistakes. So, and I'm 99% positive they still make this shirt. So there you have it. Okay. There we go, Marty. All right, look, I got to get out of here in just a second. Hey, Albert, much love. Tony, great to see you. Hello, hello, hello. All right. And yes, that is the coolest scam T-shirt. All right, everybody, out of here for now. So there's a story, Albert. So there was a bot on Facebook that was saying, "Hey, blah blah blah, order a fill in the blank artist, Doug. In this case, a Doug Doppler T-shirt." Albert bought one of those shirts. They were not officially sanctioned, but you know, I was sure this was a total rip. I ended up putting a thing, "Hey, this is a bot. This is a rip off." Albert ended up buying one before I was able to see it and put the post up. He showed up at this recent gig wearing the shirt, and the shirt's really cool, which I thought, how cool is that? So that shirt is a collector's item. So hats off to you. And Albert, by the way, the T Public folks are the same one for the Mabuhay Gardens shirt. So unfortunately, the printing on that is crooked, so I'm waiting for the replacements for that to show up. Steve, great to see you. I look forward to talking this next week. Much love, my brother. Always a pleasure. And I'm so glad things are going well in your world. Look forward to catching up. All right, Sean, everybody, thanks for hanging out. Headstock, Riley, excellent. And I can't wait to connect. And congratulations on all that you're endeavoring to do. I love that learning spirit. Tony, awesome, awesome, awesome. Yes, thank you so much. I love the stuff. I love to geek out on it. And I got to go. Bye for now. I look forward to seeing every one of you next week. Thanks again for hanging out on your Saturday. Bye for now.